Okay then, we took a little bit of a break yesterday, but now we are back at it with some Overwatch League news. So, we have a few things to go through. It's a rather interesting one, this one, because there's some big and some small transfers. But, first of all, we are starting off with Los Angeles Valiant. This is them letting go of the American DPS player KSF. KSF was one of their flexible DPS players. He can play hitscan, he can play projectile. Now, this is an interesting move from the Valiant. I'm not sure where this will lead for their DPS line. They still have KSP. KSP was their big pop-off player in terms of that hit scan role. But it does leave them with only KSP and Shax though, which I think leaves them a little bit open to issues with projectile, etc. So, we will see if they decide to replace KSF or anything. I would presume they would do, considering they have only got a 6-man roster right now, which is not meeting league regulations. So we are expecting more incomers to the Los Angeles Valiant at some point. It'll be interesting to see who they bring in. Now we see a movement at the Shanghai Dragons. This is in the coaching roles. They are letting go of Quatermain, and he will no longer be with them. He was a player coach with the Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai Dragons have a rather big coaching staff. So, I'm not surprised that they are trying to slim this down, considering cost cutting for 2021 after the no homestand season of 2020. And Quatermain is going to be one of these that goes. Quatermain was an support player of the London Spitfire during the 2019 season. So, unfortunate for him, and I hope he finds another role on another team. Then we have big moves at the Houston Outlaws. It's finally nice to see this team on the move. And we've seen them bring in Happy. We've seen them bring in Crimzo. Now we are seeing them bring in two new tank players. Two tank players that actually know each other very well, which is actually massive for this team, because tank synergy can be a massive part of Overwatch. So, Houston are bringing in the tank pairing from Talon Esports. So, this is going to be Piggy, the off-tank. This has been rumoured for quite a while. It was actually rumoured a while back that Piggy would be paired with Super at the Houston Outlaws. Obviously, Super re-signed with the San Francisco Shock, so that didn't happen. But it'll be Piggy coming in the off-tank role, and he will be partnered with Jjanggu, who is the main tank for Talon Esports, or I should say was. Now, this is interesting. This is actually very interesting. Talon Esports is a team that dominated the Pacific region when it existed. Like, it was not funny. They really did so well. But Talon ended up not having a home because the Pacific region was shut down, and so they moved over to the Korean region as they were given the chance to, because they were champions of the Pacific. Then we see this team sort of rebuild itself for the Korean season. And it's interesting because when you look at Jjanggu was not part of the Pacific region that they actually competed in. Jjanggu came in after that when they switched from the Pacific to the Korean region, and he came in from GC Busan Wave. Now, Piggy, he was with Talon Esports during the transition, so he won Season 1 2020 Pacific with Talon Esports in convincing fashion. They won the weeks, generally in convincing fashion. He also had time in China with LG Huya, which used to be the academy team of Chengdu Hunters. They now have a new academy team, again, LG Huya, a team that did very well in Chinese contenders. They generally just kept winning it, and that's what that team did. They ended up, they went up against Korean teams and did very well as well. So Piggy has a lot of history and has a lot of actual titles to his name. So he comes in with a good repertoire, is what I would say. Jjanggu, not so much. He, being with MVP Space, he was generally sort of middle of the contenders tier, if you saw what I mean, in Korea. Nothing too major. He did win Open Division 2018 with GC Busan Wave, but yeah, it's nothing major. It's nothing major from Jjanggu, but he's been paired with Piggy during this Contenders Season 2 in Korea for Talon Esports' first go in Korean Contenders. And everyone expected this team to fail and fail big time because they were coming over from the Pacific. And there was a big power difference between the Pacific and the Korean regions. But they came in and they did actually rather well. They stunned a lot of people during the season, and they ended up getting to the semi-finals. They ended up losing 3-0 to Runaway, who would go on to lose in the final to WGS Phoenix. So the finals of that season, just for perspective, they looked like they had WGS Phoenix, they had Runaway, they had Element Mystic, but then they also had Talon Esports. And that means that Talon Esports qualified for the Asia Korea Gauntlet qualifiers. That round 3 of that. So that is a major thing. And it's off the back really of this tank line. So this, although it seems like it's coming from Talon Esports, which is a team that a lot of people, it's been a meh team because it was a Pacific team. They're now in Korea. They're actually doing well in Korea, especially considering they're new to the region. And this tank line has been a major part of that. And the Houston Outlaws have snapped up both of them. So this, I think, is a good tank line for the Houston Outlaws. I don't think it's an outstanding tank line. I don't think it's a tank line that is gonna challenge the best in the league. I don't think it's a Smurf Joy Hoban. I don't think it's a Shadow and Fury of last season, let's say, or a Fearless and Void of last season. But I do think it's a tank line that can significantly improve where the Houston Outlaws were. And when you look at the Houston Outlaws now, they've got Dante, they've got Hydration. Hydration will be off of the main tank, which is a major plus for the Houston Outlaws. Because now you have Dante, who's got the more sombry tracery role. You've got Hydration with that enormous flex hero pool. You've got Happy with the really clinical hit scan role. You've got Crimzo in the backline with Boink right now. I want to see Houston sign a new support. We need to see a nice support come in there. Then we have Piggy and Jjanggu, which I think actually is a really nice tank line. I think it's a really nice tank line for the Houston Outlaws. I'll be interested to see how this all molds together under obviously the stewardship of Harsher and Junkbuck. It will be very interesting to see how this works because it's a co-head coach thing at Houston Outlaws, which is rather odd in the Overwatch League to see that. But this roster is significantly improved with the addition of Piggy and Jjanggu, in my opinion. And I think it's 2 signings they dearly needed to really boom this roster. So now looking at the moves that Houston have made in this offseason, yeah, they've lost Meko. That's a loss. But to bring in Piggy, Jjanggu, Happy, that's great additions. Crimzo's okay. I wouldn't say he's fantastic, but I think he's okay. And on the right roster, he could really flourish under the right coaching. You've got Hydration back to his DPS role, hopefully, and his flex DPS role, which I think is still his best role. Then you've got Dante, who can be the head and spearhead of this team, which will be fantastic. You've got Boink as a backup, and then you just need another support. And then I think this team is going to go places. There's no reason why a roster, if they sign a good enough flex support, a good enough support to go alongside Crimzo, I should say, there's no reason why this roster can't be a top 10 roster. If it's coached right, there is no reason why it can't be a top 10 roster with the right main support alongside to go alongside Crimzo. It'll be very interesting to see if they get that though. Houston Outlaws have a tendency to muck up their off seasons from time to time, so I don't entirely trust them to get the right signings. But it is very promising from a Houston Outlaws perspective. It's not quite Dallas Fuel levels of promising, but it is promising, I would say. And then the last one we are going to take a look at is actually a bit of a left field signing. This is the Gladiators. They are picking up Skewed from OZ Gaming. OZ Gaming, nothing massive in Korea. Really nothing massive in Korea. They haven't done too much. They've done some stuff in Open Division. They did some stuff in the Overwatch Korea Cup qualifiers, but they've never really won anything. This is a new flex support. He's 19 years old. He's had a time at Geekstar as well. This is not a starting flex support for for Los Angeles Gladiators. I would be incredibly surprised if it was. He is probably going to be a backup to Shu, and he will learn off of Shu, and possibly be a development thing for the future, considering he's only 19. I think that's how this player is going to be looked at for the Gladiators. I think it's good to have a backup in certain roles, and flex support is one of them. It'll be interesting to see if he does get any play time. I don't expect him to get much. A brief history, Korea Season 1, 2020, lost 3-0 to O2 Blast, lost 3-0 to WGS Venus, lost 3-0 to T1, lost 3-1 to Runaway, lost 3-1 to Jjanggu. It's meh. It's a meh history. But I still think it's very good. It's a decent pickup. It's a decent pickup for someone to be a backup to Shu. Now, if this was the main flex support for the Gladiators going into 2021, I'd be like, oh, hold on a minute. I'm not sure I like that. But no, that's fine. No, I think this is a good bulking out of the roster for the Gladiators. It'll be interesting to see if they decide to bring anyone else, and he's probably done quite well in some tryouts that the Gladiators have probably run during this off-season, and that's why they've decided to pick him up. He won't be too expensive either. He'll probably be a baseline contract. So, that rounds us out for this one. Rather interesting. I like the moves at Houston. I like the moves at Houston a lot. It'll be interesting to see what Valiant do in the light of KSF leaving or KSF being let go. But that is the two biggest talks, I think, in this one. Quartermain and Skewed, not too massive, but, you know, we've got to highlight them. But Piggy, Jjanggu and KSF, two big moves. Three big moves, I should say. And I wonder if KSF will find another league team. Who knows? But I am going to leave it here. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.